And we can end this at any time, right?
Yeah. You still want to go over an hour?
Yeah. Is it on mute? I'm on mute here. What do you guys do here?
You win, you get one.
Hi, everybody. I'm Rob Astorino. I'm running for governor. I'm the Westchester County Executive. I thank you for being with me for as long as you can stay on. And we have with us Congressman Chris Collins, who just wants to say a word or two. And then I'm going to take your call, your questions, no matter what the questions are. If you have a question, you press 0, and they'll take down the question, and I'll put you on, and we'll have a nice two-way conversation on issues that matter to you and want to find out and make this sort of a two-way conversation, too. So, Congressman, how are you doing?
I'm good, Rob. Thanks for letting me join in real briefly here. And I'm glad that you're going to have a chance to talk to our folks in the 27th Congressional District, coming off the high of the Buffalo Bills being 2-0. Who would have thought that? So let me just get rolling here. I want to thank everyone for dialing in. I'm Chris Collins, your congressman for New York 27. And tonight I'm proud to introduce my good friend Rob Astorino, who's running for governor of New York. Rob and I got to know each other well when I was Erie County Executive. In fact, I helped him get elected back in 2009. And I was then and still am very impressed by his hard work, his principled leadership, and his willingness to take on the tough fights. And I do know a thing or two about how tough it is being a county executive in New York State, which is one reason why Rob's accomplishments are so impressive. As a chief executive, Rob has a proven track record of success, something that we desperately need in Albany. And as Westchester County Executive, Rob has done a tremendous job dramatically turning around things there in a short time. He's reduced spending by 5.2%, and they actually are spending less in Westchester today than when Rob was first elected back in 2009. Rob has frozen or cut the property tax levy every year. And now the levy in Westchester is actually lower than it was when Rob was first elected a few years ago. Rob's helped create nearly 30,000 new private sector jobs, and under his leadership, Westchester has one of the lowest unemployment rates in New York State. That's an incredible track record of success in one of the toughest jobs in politics. It also shows why Rob would be a tremendous governor for all of New York. I want to thank everyone for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us tonight to hear firsthand from Rob about his plan to fix New York and help us start winning again. And with that, Rob, I'll turn things back over to you, and I know unlike our current governor, you'll answer every question and give them a straight answer. So I think that's what everyone's looking for, and certainly I'm 100% behind you. So with that, I'll turn it back to you.
Okay, Congressman, thank you very much. I know you're going to be voting on the floor of the House right now, so thanks for stepping in for a moment in between votes, and good luck to you, too, as well. And, Chris Collins is a friend. He's been very helpful to me. We've shared a lot of ideas, and you have a really good guy representing you folks in Washington. So here's how we're going to do this. I just want this to be a real free flow of ideas. I want you to ask a question. You press 0 to ask a question, and I'll answer it. You may not like the answer. You may love the answer, but I'm going to give you a straight answer no matter what it is, and I'll try to get to as many people as possible. Real briefly, here's why I'm running. I mean, we are losing very badly as a state right now. We have a governor who is under federal investigation for the Moreland Commission scandal, for corruption. We have the highest taxes in America, and you know that in Erie County and the surrounding areas. We have the worst business climate. You see the businesses that are leaving Buffalo and the surrounding areas as well. We have the worst economic recovery. And the proof of all this, and it's the saddest part of it, is 400,000 New Yorkers have left New York in the last 4 years. It's a mass exodus. I mean, unfortunately, our biggest export as a state are people, and that's not what's supposed to be happening. So we turn things around in Westchester. I want to turn things around for New York State. Tough race, yes, but it's a winnable race, and I want to get your responses, and I want to get your questions. So without any further ado, let's go to a couple questions here. Again, press 0 to ask me any question that you want. So let's see who's going to be first tonight. Gary, you're in Livingston. Gary, how you doing?
Hi, this is Gary from Avon in Livingston County.
Yep.
And I'd just like to know what you could do to be more vocal in there. Like, could you put some different ads in the Livingston County Penny Saver for, the regular working people and this and that? It's nice to see you on TV with your family and stuff, but you need more interaction with people in the area, you know what I mean? That could help you a lot.
Well, Gary, I appreciate it. First of all, my family and I went about a couple weeks ago. We went on a 3-day family vacation. We went to Niagara Falls, and we also were in Livingston. We went to Letchworth State Park, which was just stunning. I mean, it's absolutely beautiful. But, we are on TV as of this past Saturday with statewide commercials. Another key TV ad came out today, apparently from another group. So we're going to set the record straight on the slime that Andrew Cuomo is throwing at me. All of it is negative. It's all false.
Right.
And we're going to get that message out there. But I appreciate it, Gary. I appreciate it very much. And you will see much more of me as, we've been to Western New York a lot so far. We were in Buffalo just last weekend in a caravan.
That's good.
That took us to Albany about the SAFE Act and many other issues. So you'll see much more of me. Again, if you want to press 0 to ask me a question, I'd be more than happy to answer it. Kitty, you're on. Where are you from, Kitty?
Geneseo.
Okay. What's your question? Thanks for being with me.
I was wondering about all the negative ads and why there hadn't been any response from you. I mean, they've been some of them have been pretty harsh.
Yeah, they are. They're harsh and they're wrong. There have been cable systems in this state that have actually pulled down those ads because they were so false. Especially, the governor has the audacity to make it look like I'm under investigation, which is the furthest thing from the truth. Don't you think the press would be reporting that everywhere I went? There's only one person who's under federal investigation for criminal activity and corruption, and that's Andrew Cuomo. And the Moreland Commission scandal is what the issue is. The U.S. Attorney for the Southern District, which is in Manhattan, is the one that's investigating. Will there be indictments before the election? I don't know. I have no idea. But all I can say is we have run a very clean government in Westchester, an ethical government, and the fact that Andrew Cuomo is playing the low road, the slimy, dirty road, is really all he knows how to do. And I'm assuming the reason why he doesn't speak, because he really doesn't, he hardly ever speaks to the press or the public, everything is choreographed, is probably because his criminal defense attorneys have told him he can't because he could perjure himself. And, that's horrible, and that's not fair to the public who has a right to have questions asked. But we are going to respond in kind to set the record straight, and I appreciate that and appreciate you asking me that question. Press 0 if you want to ask a question to me, and then I'm going to give a little poll for you to take. It's anonymous, it's easy to do, and I'm going to ask it right now. So if the election were held today, who would you vote for? It's confidential, so you're not going to hurt my feelings if you're not voting for me, and if you are, I'm happy. But press 1 if you're voting for me, Rob Astorino, for governor. Press 2 if you're voting for Andrew Cuomo, or press 3 if you're undecided. Okay, 1, 2, or 3. 1 for me, 1 for Astorino, 2 for Cuomo, 3 undecided. It's totally anonymous, so you can do it, and we'd love to see what the results are. Okay, let's see. Della, is that your name, Della?
Yes.
And you're from Attica?
Yes.
Okay, what's your question?
Well, I was just wondering what the intent is for the SAFE Act.
Great. Thank you very much for asking it. So the SAFE Act is something that Sheriff Chris Moss, who is the sheriff in Chemung County, he is the president of the New York State Sheriff's Association. He's my running mate for lieutenant governor, and he and I have been very outspoken critics of the SAFE Act. We have said that we will repeal the SAFE Act. The SAFE Act has not made anyone safer in this state. Law enforcement says that. Even the New York Times the other day wrote an article that basically took away the myth that these, quote, assault weapons are rarely, if ever, used in crimes. So the SAFE Act should go away. It was, unfortunately, it made criminals into law-abiding citizens, and it's got to go, and we said we would repeal it. So thank you very much for asking that question. Let's see. Let's go to Warsaw. William. How are you, William? William?
Hydrofracking.
What's that?
The hydrofracking going on. Are you for or against it?
Thank you for your question. Natural gas exploration, hydrofracking, whatever you want to call it, is something I support. It's something that will create tens of thousands of jobs, and according to the state itself, the DEC says that it would create 50,000 jobs, much-needed jobs, by the way, in western New York and throughout upstate. It is done safely by 30 other states. It's supported by President Obama, the EPA, the Energy Department, the Interior Department. It is something that is proven to be a job producer. It'll bring in billions in revenue that will be going back to our schools, will, again, lower taxes, create jobs, and bring down our energy costs, by the way, which we need. So I have said that we will go forward with natural gas exploration. The first 90 days of my administration, we will set up the right regulations and safeguard the water supply, whether that is around the Finger Lakes, in the Catskills where New York City gets its water. But we will set up a buffer zone in the unlikely event that something would happen. But we would move forward in the vast amount of land in our state that has natural gas. This will help our farmers. This will help create small businesses. You see what's going on in the southern tier, the border, right? Our southern tier counties are desperate for jobs. The northern tier counties of Pennsylvania are doing very, very well. And, you know, the other day, I think it was yesterday, the New York Times published something. It was from the Energy Department, the Federal Energy Department, and they basically punctured the hole of all the myths. The Energy Department has said, as did the EPA, that there has not been one documented case of water contamination. 30 states are doing this. They're doing it safely, and we have to be the 31st state to do it and the last in the game. But, yes, I will move forward with it. So thank you for asking the question. Again, if the election were held today, who would you vote for? If the election for governor were held today? Me, Rob Astorino, press 1. 2, Andrew Cuomo, press 2. Or if you're undecided at this point, press 3. It is anonymous, but we'd love to know just what the sort of unofficial poll is here in the 27th Congressional District. Again, I want to thank Congressman Chris Collins for his kind words and for helping us with this. Let's go back. Let's see. Dora. Dora, you have a question.
Yes. I would like to know what your plan would be to bring the New York State schools back to the point where they were the best in the country, as they were 40 years ago. How would you approach the education problem in New York?
Great. Let me break it into two parts. First of all, Common Core. I am absolutely opposed to Common Core, and I'm coming at this in a couple directions. Number one, I'm a father. My wife and I have 3 little kids. They're not as little anymore, but my son is 11. He's in 6th grade. My daughter is in 4th grade, and my other daughter just started kindergarten. So we are, knee-deep in Common Core every night at the dinner table. And I see what Common Core is. I see what it does. And Common Core was really born out of secrecy. I had very few K through 12 teachers, if any, that were part of writing the standards nationally. And it really has taken away local control from our school districts and put it in the hands of Washington bureaucrats. And that's the last people that should be in charge of education. I would go back to what the state was doing in 2008, 9, and 10, where the regions were working on something called the lost standards, elevating the standards in our state, de-emphasizing some of the testing, putting more control back in our local decision makers, so our local superintendents, school boards, teachers, and more importantly, our parents. We also came out with an education plan, and I hope that everyone, whenever you drop off the phone at whatever point, I hope that you go to my website, robastorino.com, look up our education plan, our jobs plan, our ethics plan, see what I've done in Westchester County, and get to know me a little bit better, because our education plan is something that's very important to me. I'm a very big supporter of public education. I went through public education. I'm a product of it. I was on a school board. My kids are in public education. My wife is a special ed teacher. And I don't like where public education is going in this state. We are spending more per pupil than any state in America, yet we're in the middle of the pack with results. And that's just, it's unacceptable. Our inner city schools, whether it's in Buffalo or other areas, have unacceptably high dropout rates. Our graduation rate is so low. Our test scores are terrible, and we can do better. We have to do better. I'd also get back to some of the basics, and that's outlined in my plan. I think we should be offering 3 different diplomas, 3 new diplomas, getting back to some of our technical, vocational skills, which are really no longer in our schools. Wood shop, home ec, these are kind of things that kids can learn and actually be guided into a career if they're not going to college, and that's important. STEM, science, technology, education, engineering, and math, that's the global economy right now, and we're importing people from other countries to fill those jobs when our own kids should be learning that and can fill those jobs ourselves. So there's a whole bunch of stuff there. I really do hope you go to robastorino.com and learn more about it, but that's just a quick little snapshot. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question, and I'll ask this one more time. If the election were held today, who would you vote for governor? Press 1 for me, Rob Astorino. Press 2 if you're going to vote for Andrew Cuomo. And press 3 if you're still undecided, okay? So let's see who else wants to ask a question. Don. How are you, Don? Where are you from, Don?
Hi, Rob. How are you?
I'm good.
Hey, being a small business owner, what can you do for me? I am taxed to death here in New York.
You're getting crushed.
It seems like every corner I turn, there's a tax on something else, or there's a tax on a tax.
Yeah.
What can you do to help us out? And also, I like what you said about bringing things back to the schools, about industrial arts and things like that. I like that. That was a good answer.
Well, thanks. What kind of business you have, Don?
I have an excavating business.
Oh, great. Okay. So New York State right now has really become the enemy to any growth because we have, believe it or not, and you would know this, 750,000 regulations on the books. And one of the first things I will do on January 1st is sign an executive order that will prohibit any more mandates or any more regulations until we deal with the ones that we already have and get rid of the ones that aren't working. The state Senate had a bipartisan agreement last year to get rid of about 2,500 of some of the worst regulations. It went nowhere, unfortunately. The governor did not push it. And so if you look at all the rankings in the country, New York State is worst in America. We are dead last, 50th out of 50 states for business climate, for economic outlook. Buffalo is ranked near the bottom in America. The 20 worst cities, 10 of the worst 20 cities in America for economic outlook looking forward. Buffalo's right there. 10 of them are in the New York State. You know, you see this whole Startup New York campaign. It is the biggest fraud on TV. The governor has spent $250 million, that's a B, $250 million to paint a picture that doesn't exist. And you as a small business owner, Don, you know it. I think anyone else who works for a company or owns a business knows this. Right now, I mean, Tyson Foods is the perfect example. Tyson Foods announced 300 layoffs. They were closing up shop, moving, leaving. Why? Because you can't do business in New York. The business should be able to breathe, should be able to expand. It should not be a majority of your time dealing with regulations and dealing with the state. Who is happy when you get a letter from New York State? Who's happy when an inspector shows up at your door? Do we need regulations? Of course we do. But we don't need state government to be the enemy, and that's what's happening right now. You also have, because you won't win and the average person won't win, because right now, under this governor, you have a whole pay-to-play scam. Basically, if you're going to be awarded a state contract, or if you're going to be awarded one of those, startup, which is very few, or a grant through these economic development councils, follow the money. The people who win these are giving massive amounts of donations to Andrew Cuomo's campaign. And that is the last thing we should be doing in this state, because it's an unlevel playing field. A few win, and we all lose. And we lose because we have higher taxes to pay for those deals. So the regulations, again, go to robastorino.com. We have our whole job plan on there, which is what's going to kickstart this economy. It's also specific to agriculture, which is, getting creamed by the state. The only cream should be from the cows, but the cream is we're getting creamed by the state in regulations and everything else. So I hope that answers your question, Don. Press 0 if you want to ask a question, and we're going to get another poll question in just a minute. Lori, you're in Lima. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. What's your question?
Just was wondering if you have any plans with the property taxes on lowering them or trying to help out the people, or what?
Yes. So let me tell you what I did in Westchester, because that's really my philosophy. I came into Westchester County. I got elected in 2009. It's a 2-to-1 Democratic county, by the way. So there was a good amount of Democrats who voted for me in 2009 and got me into office. And then when I just ran for re-election last year, same amount of Democrats voted for me. They stuck with me because I did what I said I was going to do. And here's what I did. We cut the county property tax levy more than any county in New York State. So 62 counties. Westchester was one of the few that cut county property taxes, but we did it the most, and that's according to the state comptroller, so don't take my word for it. We also lowered the budget, and because we lowered the budget, we were able to lower taxes. Right now, people are getting crushed. You got a property tax cap. What most people don't realize is, again, like everything Andrew Cuomo has done, a lot of it is smoke and mirrors. A property tax cap, yes, I supported that back then. But the governor promised that it was two parts of the equation, a property tax cap, but then limiting expenses from Albany on our localities and our schools, and that's in the form of unfunded mandates. In other words, the state requires a school district or a town or a village to do something, and then they don't pay for it. So we've all become the ATM machine. Your property taxes are basically funding state spending. And so they've got really no incentive to cut their spending because they're getting it from income taxes, which are the highest in the country, and your property taxes, which keeps going up. The property tax cap is going to expire. It sunsets in 2 years. We should make that permanent, number one. But second, we also have to attack the expenses in Albany. Otherwise, expenses are going to continue to go up on the local level. So it's a two-part equation, and that's what we did in Westchester, and that's what I will do as governor. So I thank you very much for asking. In property taxes, here's another thing, and it's sort of the audacity, because as you and I are paying crazy property taxes, guess who wasn't paying his fair share? I don't know if you heard about this, but Andrew Cuomo lives in Westchester. Like many people, he has remodeled his house to some extent, but he didn't do what everyone else has to do, and I did it when my basement was refinished. If you have home improvements, you have to take out building permits. And then the improvements mean your assessments go up, which means you pay higher property taxes. This governor, Andrew Cuomo, thought that he was completely above the law. And when he and Sandra Lee, where he lives, did all these huge improvements to their home, they redid and finished their basement, they remodeled their whole kitchen, and they let publications, some of these fancy publications, come in and do a whole spread on their home, pictures, etc. Andrew Cuomo never took out building permits. He never paid his fair share of property taxes. And he was caught, and he lied about it. And so we have been calling him to release the building permits because he doesn't have any. And when he was reassessed, he wouldn't let the tax assessor come in. So the tax assessor apparently just reassessed his house from the outside and from the photos in those publications. And Cuomo didn't challenge the assessment. So he literally got away with underpaying his property taxes for 4 years at the tune of $30,000. Now, if you did that or if I did that, what would happen? We would certainly face some penalties or we would never think of doing that. And he himself has set the wrong example and underpaid his property taxes. So he's the last person in the world to talk about property taxes. All right, press 0 if you want to ask me a question. I'm Rob Astorino. I'm running for governor. I appreciate you giving me a couple of minutes of your time. All right, another question I want to ask you, a poll question. Besides high taxes and the economy, which affect everybody, which issue is the most important to you? Is it stop Common Core or Common Core? If it is, press 1. Is it jobs through natural gas exploration or fracking? Press 2. Is it repealing the SAFE Act? If it's that, then hit number 3. Is it the corruption, which is leveling, unlevel playing field for all of us, the corruption? Press 4. Or if it's something else that I haven't asked or none of the above, just press number 5, okay? Stop Common Core is 1. Jobs through fracking 2. Repeal the SAFE Act 3. Corruption is 4. Or none of the above or something else, you can just press 5. All right, I'm Rob Astorino. I'm running for governor. Hope you go to Facebook or follow me on Twitter. Certainly, if you're inclined to do so and you want to support us, we'll accept your donations. You can do that online. That's how we're going to get our message out. But I want to ask you more questions. So, Dennis, how are you, Dennis?
Hello?
Dennis? Is Dennis there? Maybe it's Denise?
No.
All right. Let's I want to take somebody else. Let's see. Brian, you're in Batavia. Brian? This is when I go, technical difficulties, please stand by. No, if you want to ask a question, press 0, and we will make sure you get in the queue. Again, I am running for governor because we are losing jobs. We're losing people in record numbers. Taxes are continuing to go up. We're losing, we're bleeding to death as a state. And Andrew Cuomo, on a good day, is managing our decline. On a bad day, he's hitting the accelerator and driving us into into oblivion. And that's measured against all the other states. Yes, Dennis, you on?
Yeah.
All right, Dennis.
Yeah, you had a difficulty there.
Okay.
First of all, I'd like to respond to the STEM program. That's a great thing. Not every kid is tuned into college, and they can make a wonderful living in some of these trades. So I go along with that. The next question is the new startup thing, kind of a remake of the Empire Zones that we had years ago. It seems to me you're picking winners and losers if you create these zones around some of the college towns and give these people all a big fancy package. What happens to the people whose family have served that community just outside of that zone for years?
That's right.
They can't compete. I mean, what's your take on that? What are you going to do about that?
No, I appreciate the question, Dennis. Look, the Startup New York campaign is a massive fraud. It really, when you think about the audacity, so Cuomo has spent, as I said earlier, $250 million. That's $250 million, tax dollars, to promote this whole Alice in Wonderland, isn't New York State doing wonderful? If you're in North Carolina or South Carolina or Florida or Texas where there's a boom, North Dakota, South Dakota, where the unemployment is in the 2s, those other states I mentioned with no income tax or no estate tax or corporate taxes that are very low, a really friendly business environment, Are you really going to leave those states and come to New York so you get pounded every day by the state and get pounded by the highest taxes and the worst business climate? You're not, and it's not happening. What it is, it's really a thinly disguised campaign commercial for Andrew Cuomo to pretend things are going well.
Yeah, you might better put that money toward tax relief to the people that
absolutely right. Imagine what we could do with $250 million. We've got a lot of people out of work. That policy is exactly what is wrong with New York, this whole startup thing. So let me just walk you through it real fast. The Startup New York campaign means if you're a particular type of industry that Andrew Cuomo picks, only high tech, and if you locate on a SUNY campus, then maybe if you meet all of these separate requirements, you'll get tax-free for 10 years. What's going to happen in year 11? They're going to leave. You know why? Because they're going to go to another state that has much lower taxes and is a business-friendly environment. What about the people that already have these businesses who are outside the tax-free zone, who are getting crushed by New York State every day, who are barely making payroll, who want to expand, but now they're going to be poached by the new business across the street? I mean, these are all the things that are wrong. Who am I to say, whoever's on this phone call right now, who am I to say who has the next great idea in Western New York? I shouldn't be picking or choosing who gets a break. If we made taxes low and the business climate really welcoming, you're going to start your business here. And that's all I want, whether it's in Niagara County, Erie County, Cattaraugus, I don't care where it is. I want you to start your business in New York, and you should be helped. As part of our small business plan and our jobs plan on robastorino.com, you know, for small businesses, for LLCs and S-Corps, we would waive the you would have no cost to incorporate. I mean, it's the small things, too, that help you get the capital and keep the capital that you need. And the big things, like getting rid of some of these onerous regulations that are just prohibiting growth. You know, I've been traveling. I'm all over the state. And I was in Buffalo last weekend. And, just as I talk to just average New Yorkers and people in Western New York, people are hurting. You know, gas prices are still high. Food costs are going up. Energy costs are high. You know, people are worried paycheck to paycheck. And you see what's going on. You know, look along Route 5 there. You know, all the buildings that used to be full. Tyson announces that they're leaving. I mean, it's just one in a long line. Yeah, there's a couple of cranes in the sky. But you know what? We would do so much better if we had the right policies out of Albany. You wouldn't need these gimmicks. So I want to thank you, Dennis, for the question. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question. And let's see, Roy. Roy, how are you?
Not too bad. What I'm looking for jobs around here, lots of jobs. And electricity, what I've just said before, is about I helped build that power project. New York City gets all the low prices. We get all stuck with the high prices.
Exactly. And, first of all, you're blessed. Niagara Falls and the power coming from the water is amazing. And that's something we should continue to push. We also, we should be using nuclear, and our power plants in New York, like in Oswego and in Westchester County, where Indian Point is, this is what's powering the state. But you know what the biggest source of energy is in New York State? Natural gas. 35% of our energy comes from natural gas in the state, another 30% from nuclear. And that's really what we got to make sure we continue. Hydro is up there too. Hydro, I think, is like 18%. So when we talk to businesses, one of the biggest obstacles to staying here or coming here are the high cost of energy, not just in your own homes, but it's also driving away jobs. So energy costs can come down significantly if we just use the energy that we're walking on, that this governor won't allow us to go get, and that's natural gas. And it's something that I would go forward with because it would create an enormous amount of jobs and revenue to this state, which is much needed. So I thank you for your question, Roy. Dorothy, how are you, Dorothy?
Yes.
Where are you from, Dorothy?
Corfu.
All right. Where's that?
About 12 miles west of Buffalo, or west of Batavia, on Route 33.
Okay. How can I help you? What's your question?
My question is, what, if anything, can be done to get rid of Sheldon Silver?
You know, here's another thing about people don't know about Sheldon Silver, who is the leader of the Assembly. Two things. First of all, Sheldon Silver would have been gone. He would have been gone because he was caught using hundreds of thousands of taxpayer dollars to cover up sex crimes in the Assembly. And you know who sent him a life preserver, who protected him when Silver was just about gone? Andrew Cuomo. So he would be gone. You know what else Sheldon Silver does, and you don't even know about it? He controls your classrooms. Because Sheldon Silver, because of the state constitution, and this is another big, bold change that we would make in this state, the Board of Regents, which runs our whole education system in New York, is basically accountable to nobody. But they are picked by one person, the Assembly leader, and that's Sheldon Silver. So right now you got a guy in Lower Manhattan who is basically picking all of the regents in New York State, including the representative from Western New York, making the policies in our state, including Common Core. And I have said that should change. The governor should appoint the education commissioner, so there's accountability, and the governor has accountability on education. And we would totally change how the Board of Regents is selected. Instead of by technically a joint session of the legislature, which is dominated by the Assembly Democrats, especially out of New York City, and Silver gets to pick them all, I would have direct elections for the 13 members of the Board of Regents from each district. It would come either directly by the people in a vote or by local school board members who are already elected representatives of the people, and they can pick the people to represent their district. That's part of my education plan. I hope you go to robastorino.com and look it up. So we got more questions. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question. Again, I want to thank Congressman Chris Collins for jumping on the phone earlier and giving me a little introduction. He's doing a great job. He's in Washington right now voting on your behalf, and I appreciate all of Congressman Collins' support. If you don't get to ask a question tonight, we'll be on for probably another 20 minutes. Feel free to send me an email. You can do it right online at robastorino.com. You can go on our Facebook. I hope you join anyway. You can send me a tweet at Rob Astorino, and we'll get your questions answered. But that's also a way to combat all the negative, slimy ads that Cuomo is putting up on TV, which are all false. But he's got $30 million. $30 million, which is more than the governors of California, Illinois, Connecticut, and Maryland combined. And it all came from filthy, dirty deals and pay to play, but that's what he's going to use it for. So if you have a question, press 0. William in Alden, how are you?
I'm fine. I would like to know what your position is on the SAFE Act and your position on gun control and the likes of all of this.
Wherever you see a repeal the SAFE Act sign in New York, there should be a Rob Astorino for governor sign, because this is something that has not made anyone safer, and law enforcement says that. This is something that was done in the middle of the night with no public comment, and it literally made, law-abiding gun owners, law-abiding citizens into criminals overnight. And we will repeal the SAFE Act. My running mate, Sheriff Chris Moss from Chemung County, is the president of the New York State Sheriff's Association, was one of the first outspoken critics, and so was I down from Westchester County where I am. And we have said repeatedly, and we're going around the state talking to Second Amendment groups and Scope and others, that we will repeal the SAFE Act. And I think most New Yorkers agree that a bad law should never become a law, and that's what happened here. So I hope that answers your question, William. Press
yes, sir,
0.
it does.
Good, thank you very much. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question. I'm Rob Astorino. I am the Republican, Conservative, and Stop Common Core ballot line candidate for governor, and in the next 48 days, I'm going to continue the dialogue that I've been having with people all across this state, and certainly tonight in the 27th Congressional District, which is represented by Chris Collins. So, Laura from Hamburg, how are you, Laura?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. What's your question?
Well, you've kind of answered it just as I was listening to the other callers. I did have a 3-part question, so part 3 wasn't answered. I kind of know now where you stand on Common Core. I'm a special education teacher.
My wife.
Yeah, I heard you say that. That's awesome. And, as teachers, we are just like in tears for our students because we're just seeing this unreasonable burden put on them. And what I think my biggest concern with education is that we're seeing no options. So when I heard you say that you want to bring in an option for students to have some technical endorsements and to bring back some technical diplomas, I think that is exactly what needs to happen because these kids have no options.
Right.
And the students that I teach need that option. So I'm happy to hear that you're saying this because it's been my dream to hear somebody say this.
No, I appreciate it, Laura. And, the thing that bothers me the most about Common Core, there's many things about Common Core that I really don't like, but you can see with special education kids or kids with individual education plans, kids that are struggling just, as everyday students sometimes do, they're going to get swept behind. And
yes, they are.
The whole thing about this Common Core thing, like for people who don't have kids in schools, they don't understand necessarily, like, well, why would you be against higher standards? Nobody is against higher standards. I'm certainly not. I think we need higher standards in our state. There's no question about it. But right now, teachers have become like testing automatrons, and that's not what teachers are supposed to do. When my kids leave my house in the morning, I'm entrusting my kids' lives with teachers who know my kids probably better than anyone else other than me and my wife. And what I've seen happen clearly as I talk to teachers around the state and my own children's teachers, we had our back-to-school night the other night, is and I went through this last year with Common Core, and I pulled my kids out. I didn't have them take the test. They spent 3 full weeks teaching to the ELA test, 3 full weeks teaching to the math, 6 weeks of really no instruction in anything but the ELA and math just to the test. They had no science really, no social studies, forget music and art. They were pulled out of that. It's insane that we've become just testing. We need standards. We do. We do need some benchmarks. But the way it's being done with Common Core is wrong. There were few, if any, teachers on the standards writing committee for Common Core. It was all done in secrecy. It's never been tested everywhere, anywhere in the country. People don't understand this. This is a massive education experiment that states like New York and other states went into blindly. They had no clue what they were getting into. They went in it specifically because in 2009 and 10, when the economy collapsed, the federal government was dangling hundreds of millions of dollars. That's why New York rushed into it. That's why Cuomo, ran into Common Core. The implementation's been a nightmare. It's been a disaster. And test scores haven't increased. They've actually lowered the standards on the scores in order to increase very slightly the test results. So it's not the be-all, end-all. And I have said that we would get out of Common Core as a state, as many other states are currently doing. But, Laura, I thank you for teaching. And I know it's a hard job, and I thank you very much.
It's a great job. And, the other question I had was about the evaluations that teachers our evaluation scores are being linked to student achievement, which, again, I don't want any of my students to underachieve. I want them to get the best of everything. But when you teach students who struggle, and I'm seeing these children suffer, and I'm sitting here thinking, oh, my goodness, it's going to look like I'm the worst teacher in the world. That's the other issue for teachers, too. So I hope you take that into consideration.
Absolutely. Laura, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. President Earl, if you want to ask me a question. And Denise from Attica. How are you, Denise?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
I'm great.
Good. My question for you is, what is your plan to get the Democrats and the Republicans to work together there in Albany so that you can start doing some of these things that you're proposing?
Yeah. Well, it's Westchester, just so you know, Westchester is 1 million people. It's similar to Erie County. It's 1 million people. It's 49% Democrat, 24% Republican. So when I got elected, it sort of shocked the political world, and I won big, and then I got reelected big, and I only could have won with the support of Democrats, aside from Republicans. And the county legislature in Westchester is Democratic, and so everything that we've been able to accomplish has been bipartisan. And, I've led the agenda in what I wanted to do. We've cut property taxes more than any county in New York State. We've actually lowered the budget. The budget today in Westchester, believe it or not, is smaller in real dollars. I came in, it was a $1.8 billion budget. It's $1.7 billion, 4 years later, because we prioritized. We didn't just perpetuate and keep throwing money at programs that weren't working just to, quiet everybody down. So I tried to lead by telling people what the problems were and then offering a solution out of it, and it's worked. And so we would do the same thing in the legislature. Look, I know the state legislature, the Assembly and the Senate, is going to be a lot harder to deal with because they're far more entrenched than the legislature in Westchester County. I'm not a dummy. But I also believe that when I win, the public in New York State will have made a very big, resounding statement that they want our agenda to move forward of lowering taxes in this state, helping the economy, and creating our jobs, which are leaving the state in record numbers. We've had 400,000 people leave this state under Andrew Cuomo. That is, just imagine that. 400,000 people have left New York State in just 4 years. It's incredible. And they're going where the jobs are. They're going where the cost of living is easier. And that's why we've got to make some significant changes. Cuomo had his chance. I was rooting for him when he got elected. The things he was talking about, I was agreeing with. The problem is he didn't do any of them. What he focused on was very, divisive social issues, right, wrong, or indifferent. But what he should have been focusing on was putting people back to work, reviving the economy. People aren't going back to work because he puts $250 million in Startup New York ads on TV, which are totally false. People are leaving. The unemployment rate is unacceptably high in New York State. So I will work with Democrats, and I'll work with anybody who wants to move this state forward, just like I did in Westchester County. So I thank you for asking. We've got a couple more minutes to go. Press 0 if you want to ask me a question. And, again, I want to thank Congressman Chris Collins, who introduced me earlier tonight in this call. He's right now on the floor of the House casting votes on your behalf. So I appreciate all his help. And again, go to robastorino.com, look up my record and my background and where I want to take this state, what I've done in Westchester. Don't buy the nonsense that Cuomo's putting on. And go to Facebook and go to Twitter. That's how we're gonna have this dialogue. Let's go to Penny. Penny, you're where, in East Amherst?
East Amherst, outside of Buffalo.
Yep.
And I wanted to ask you what your opinion and your where you stand on gaming in New York. I've listened to you speak for the last while here, and there's been a lot about jobs, creating jobs in New York.
Yeah.
And I feel like gaming has been sold to the people of New York, and it's creating problems, but you never hear about that. You don't hear about the gambling problems and the people that we're spending money on to help with that. And I was wondering where you stand on gaming in New York.
Yep. Well, there's two issues here. First, you have the Seneca Nation and the compact that the state signed with the nation. All right. So obviously you have a casino in Niagara Falls. There's one in downtown Buffalo, and there's one in Cattaraugus or Chautauqua.
Right.
I forget where it is.
But there's also gaming that's not part of the Seneca Nation.
Right. But the referendum that passed, and the governor is now raising literally millions of dollars from the casino industry. The decision on where these casinos will go is not going to be made until after Election Day, when he said it was going to be made 6 months ago. Mm-hmm. And as I've said, if you're betting that the casino industry is going to revive the economy, just to take a casino parlance, you're going to crap out. It's not what is going to bring back this economy. That is going to create a few jobs, but it's also going to bring in the necessity for a lot of services in a community. Right. It's going to bring in problems, as you mentioned, gambling problems, but there's crime associated with this too. So it's not the be-all, end-all. Please, you got to be kidding me. What will bring this state back to life is bringing a real business-friendly environment in this state, which was what we do not have. Right now, we've got the state apparatus, which is acting like the aggressor, the opponent to business by constantly harassing, violations, fines, inspections, fill out this form, that form. Nobody can do business in this state anymore. It's why people are leaving. It's why Tyson Foods just said goodbye.
Right. Where would you stand on more gaming in New York State, approving more casinos and bringing more gaming into the state?
No, I don't think we need more casinos in New York State. It's already the casino industry itself is on hard times, and they don't expect it to come back. You look at, I was just reading about this today, actually. We're flooded. The problem is we're 20 years too late to this. We're flooded with casinos in the Northeast, and so there's all these options. And even the casinos that were pre-existing, the ones in Connecticut, look at Atlantic City. 3 casinos just closed in Atlantic City last week. This is what the future is, and this is what's going to happen in New York. I want to thank you for asking that question. One other thing it was asked a little earlier about Sheldon Silver, who should be gone, should be stepping down, or should be replaced as Speaker, and the fact that Andrew Cuomo puts his arm around him and protects him every time. I have called for term limits in New York State. The governor should have 2 terms, no more. Same thing with the comptroller and the attorney general. And our state legislators, God bless them, most of them are in it for the right reasons, but you can be in there way too long, and that's where corruption starts. That's where the temptations are. That's where they stop representing the people that voted them in and represent the privileged few. Term limits should be in place, 8 years for statewide, 8 years for legislators as well. We put term limits in Westchester when I got in there, and I think turnover is good. Let's see. We've got about 5 more minutes or so. So let me sneak in another couple questions here. Press 0 if you want to ask one. Let's see. Where's that one? Oh, Amanda. Amanda from Kent?
Yes. Good evening.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for hopping on here.
I just want to say thank you very much for taking the time and effort to run. Everything I've heard from you tonight makes me very, very happy.
Thank you.
My question for you, however, that I haven't heard you speak on is in regards to welfare reform and immigration.
Yes.
I'm curious to know your stand on how we're going to reform our welfare system and prevent our state from becoming a housing for illegal immigrants who are in transition before they are sent back to their countries.
Okay. Amanda, thank you for the question. There is a bill that is working its way through the Senate and the Assembly, pushed by the Democrats, and Andrew Cuomo was asked about it yesterday and did not give an answer, which to me means he supports it or will support it, because the Working Families Party, who he cut a deal with to get their support, this is the New York City, groups and the Occupy Wall Street groups out of New York City that is now owning the agenda of Andrew Cuomo, as does Bill de Blasio, the mayor of New York City. They are pushing for anyone in New York that is here, they do not have to have legal status, would be eligible to vote, to serve on juries, to get a driver's license, and to get benefits. That's where this state is going in a second term of Andrew Cuomo and the Democrats in the state Senate. It was in the papers today in New York City. I have come out absolutely opposed to this. The whole immigration system is broken, totally broken, and Washington needs to fix it, because if they don't, you're going to have these kind of proposals in New York, in your own communities, and everywhere in the country, and it's just going to be, and it is to some extent, utter chaos. And this would, if you think your property taxes are high now, this will send them through the roof, because who's going to pay for all these benefits and everything else? It's going to be you, it's going to be me, and everybody else. Look, I am very compassionate, as probably you are and anyone else, for anyone who wants to come to America. My family at some point came to America, as probably everyone else. But there is a limit to what we can afford we're already maxed out in taxes, and we're already scraping. You know, Andrew Cuomo wants to give even prisoners, those in prison right now, felons, free college tuition out of our tax dollars. I don't know about you, but my wife and I are scrimping and saving every month to put a little bit away in a 529 account for our 3 kids. And the fact that he wants to give free tax dollars for education for prisoners makes me mad and is exactly what's wrong with this state. And it's the same thing with those who are here without legal status. You know, there's also a big security issue, too. And one thing we learned from the Boston bombers, one thing we learned from the 9/11 attacks is they were here in America able to be in society because they were using false driver's license. And it is a huge security issue, not just with our Mexican border, but with New York State's border with Canada. And already the Canadian officials have said that there are over 100 ISIS Canadians, members of ISIS. So we better be careful with our own borders and not be giving away driver's license to anyone who walks in here, whether they're legal or not, and benefits. We already have a Medicaid system that is broken in New York. We spend more on Medicaid in New York State in real dollars than Texas, Florida, and Pennsylvania combined. We're compassionate people, but we've got to find that balance between what we can afford as taxpayers and the compassion that people need, that we all want to be there for. But we're well out of balance in this state right now. So I want to thank everybody for really all that you have done on this phone. I mean, you're just asking me questions and staying on the line and listening to me. I appreciate it very, very much. If you want to leave a message, we'll get you the answer. If you want to shoot me an email, rob@astorino.com, or ask a question on Facebook, or you can tweet and follow me, we will get you the answers to your question. But I want to thank Congressman Chris Collins for his help in setting this up, and I want to thank you because you've become a little more informed, hopefully, about me, and I would certainly appreciate your vote on November 4th. And also, I'd appreciate your donations. If you want to donate to our campaign, you can do so online. Any amount is going to help, and was going to go right on TV to get our message out and to combat the negative false advertising by Andrew Cuomo. So thanks again. I hope to see you when I'm back in Buffalo and Western New York shortly, and I hope you have a great night. Thanks again.